Here's sort of 5 points to, you can do this however you want, but identifying and designing the desired request types. So, brainstorm common and useful request types. So think for each of the different types of data content. And again, you can maybe just want to start off with reports, or, you can look at data systems or whatever, but say, what are the types of requests, the type of things that if people can't find in the catalog that they might have a request to have done. They need access, they want to change this, they need policies, all sorts of things. And just brainstorm coming up with that, and which ones would be useful to be helpful to make available to your users, right? And you're not gonna be able to think of everything, so always have just some sort of generic, like, hey, I have I need something, and that just, they can get tracked, whatever. And then come up with sort of a really simple template for what the requester can put for what they want, right? And this can usually just be like 1 or 2 fields. It says, this is what I want, and this is why I want it, and this is when I want it. Like, that might be as much as you might need to say. And then that then gets routed to, once it goes into the workflow for someone to then work on, particularly if it's a report, that might lead them to have to, there's a whole conversation where the report writer is working with the requester to fill out a whole bunch of information about more detail around if it's a report request, or even if it's a data quality issue, there might be a whole bunch of interactions. But we want to make a very small barrier for them submitting that request, and then after that, it becomes a whole conversation about what else needs to happen. As I mentioned at the beginning of this session, there's this report catalog best practices session, which is number 13, and ETL integration catalog best practices session number 14 in that chart, that has a lot on templates for capturing information around those 2 processes, if you want to look at that. All right, then the next thing that you want to do is determine how you want to technically manage and track that request. So that may be that you're going to use a data governance catalog tool like the cookbook. Maybe you're going to use an existing ticketing system or support system, or maybe you're going to do some other homegrown thing. That's fine, whatever you're going to do. One thing that we recommend is, if you are using a tool like the cookbook and you also have a ticketing system, and people have 95% of their activities come, issues that they have, they go to the ticketing system. Rather than having them take these other issues now and have to start them in your data catalog tool, with our solution, and if you're building something yourself, you can have your ticketing system, hand off the ticket, so they can still start on their side, but it can hand off the ticket to the workflows within the cookbook if you want to do that. And this really is pushing towards this next topic of, like, where's the best place to provide your users with an entry point to submitting the request? Because we also have this other issue that I call it the field of dreams problem. People think I've built this thing, people will, I put some content in it, people will come and use it, but they won't. Like, if people are looking at a report and they're saying, this doesn't make sense, I don't understand what this is, and they don't know how to submit a request to get some information on that, they're not going to do it. And maybe a year ago someone had this sent them an email saying, we have this new tool called the Data Cookbook, please log into it, or we have a new tool. They're not going to do that. So if you really want to make that work, figure out how to put like a link or an API call or something on that reporting tool that or on the web page they typically use, or in the ticketing system where they're would be encountering these questions or the need for that request, so that they can then click through or even submit from that point to the API or whatever in the cookbook to have that flow through to start that workflow. So, and this is something in the last couple of years I've been really trying to push on our implementation teams, is to say, it's not good enough to set up and configure your knowledge base. You have to make sure that the knowledge base is sort of embedded where people encounter the questions that they have, so that they can find the answers that they need and reference and link and search it, but also submit the request when they can't find what they're doing. So that's this point of engagement is important. And then lastly, once you have that, provide training and encouragement to your consumers and requesters on how to find and submit the requests, and say, you might not find everything you're looking for, but please submit a request. We're going to do our best to get that response back to you as soon as possible, and we'll go. So